So thanks for joining us, Pat. So really want to talk to everyone today about the empowering message, I believe, that you bring to so many people is that breast cancer is preventative. And I don't think a lot of people have heard it framed that way, right? It's all like, okay, get your screening. We're going to find it early. Wear the pink, everyone get out there, but wait, stop. We can prevent this.
I know.
Yeah, so kind of tell us more about that from your end. Like what really brought you to this mission of yours?
Well, first of all, the mission for me was the falling apart in every symptom of MS in my early 30s. And back then, there was no internet, and there wasn't this information highway and everything at your fingertips to go and gather or go and knock on a door and talk to a practitioner. Believe me, even chiropractors back then were still under the radar, being scrutinized, taken to court for false claims, etc. And in fact, I worked for a neurologist at a teaching hospital in London, and he was the #1 chelation expert from mainstream who would go to all these court cases and be the expert, disregarding anything that they were saying with respect to chelation therapy in natural medicine. So times were very different back then. But for me, falling apart, I had to really realize I didn't want the 6 pharmaceuticals they offered me after 6 months of evaluating me. I saw all these specialists, even that fact of putting me on antibiotics for the rest of my life, crazy stuff. And I had to do some soul searching. It just didn't resonate with me. And I think that's the big thing women need to know is obviously be connected and listen to your intuition, your gut. It's never wrong. So I started out on the wrong foot. And what a blessing now when I look back that I was able to change all that, because no matter what it is, whether it's breast cancer or some other debilitating chronic disease, the reality is it's preventable. It's epigenetics. In our world, in my world, I truly believe that all my teachings have shown me that we're 100% in charge of the cells of our body, all of them, all 75 trillion. What's the environment of your cells being exposed to? So I always love the example of a cancer cell in a petri dish full of normal cells. It's going to be thrown in there. It can't survive. But a normal cell in a petri dish of cancer cells and all that adverse environment, it is going to become cancerous. And so we do have the power. Here's one thing that really struck me, really disturbed me actually, because I've been doing events for 30 years in natural medicine, and I've been doing events for probably 14 years specific to breast cancer prevention. And I have been getting flack. I have been told that putting the word prevention and breast cancer in the same sentence is total misinformation, misleading the public, trying to take their money for the purposes of thermography, which is a quack, modality, and all of these things. But persevering through it, believing in that preventative model. And do you know, last year was the first time, Natalie, in May, after my breast show in London, Ontario, I didn't get any nasty grams on Facebook. I didn't get phone calls and breast cancer support groups calling me with my little rat cards from the breast show in town, disturbing them greatly because they felt, why did I have a double mastectomy, chemo, and radiation? If this was preventable, I would be doing that. So the American Cancer Society, they have to. It's a shift. And unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of women found out the information too late after decades of believing that it wasn't preventable. And they started talking a year and a half ago in the States. Now in Canada, even there are events where they're getting medical doctors and different pink campaign people talking about the fact that 1/3 of all breast cancer is preventable. And Natalie, if it was 1% that you could hold on to and prevent, there's not one of my cancer patients that have, or those that are strong family history and they're scared and they want to get on their game, that wouldn't fight for that 1%.
Oh,
So
for sure.
isn't it sad, but is truly the way of the world right now in medicine, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised you were getting flack, but when you get flack from other people we hold in high esteem in the medical community, back, like you already threw out the word epigenetics, so I definitely want to pursue that a little bit more. But they're just not reading the research, right?
Yeah.
So Pat just told us that a third of all breast cancers are preventable, and a lot of followers in the epigenetic realm of research is saying 80 to 90% of all chronic disease is preventable.
Oh
We're
yeah.
shifting. We're at the beginning of a shift, right? So people on this webinar, if they've known you or they've known me, maybe they've heard a little bit about this stuff.
Hmm.
But we spent so long focusing on the genes and
Yeah.
finding the genes, and it was like when the Human Genome Project was released, and we finally met. We thought this was it. It's like we know the genes, we can determine who's going to get cancer, who's going to get Alzheimer's, and that's it, and you're going to know. But now the epigenetic research is starting to come out more and more, and it's
Yeah.
like it's not even just like it's been out for a long time,
Yeah.
right? That I look up Dr. Bruce Lipton a lot. It's like no, 80 to 90% of anything out there is epigenetic, and for the people watching, that means the things you do on a regular basis, your environment, what kind of petri dish are you in, your sleep habits, your food, your exercise, those are the things that control how your body expresses that gene. So that's kind of what epigenetic means.
And that's the pivotal, what you just mentioned, foundational preventative plan of action. And I mean, even if you go back to when the China study came out over 3 decades ago, almost four, that even a raw diet, low on the food chain, clean up what you're putting in your body, you can reverse type 2 diabetes in a month. It's about all those chronic debilitating things, that foundational component, but truly has to be body, mind, and spirit, not always just the physical approach. And it's big in the world of breast cancer prevention because there is a clear carcinogenic personality, and there's a clear connection between your thoughts and your emotions, the could, would, should, affecting the breast health. Absolutely.
So Pat, let's start with exactly what is thermography.
Okay.
They're starting to hear about it. They've maybe seen a couple documentaries. It was definitely highly talked about in the Truth About Cancer documentary,
Yeah.
which has been big. A lot of people have been tuning into it. So what exactly is it?
And you know, the beauty of the Truth About Cancer was what we've waited 30 years for. We've waited for collectively accurate, credible, profound information from the top experts globally, and 10 million followers and counting every day. And it's been a huge eye-opener for many, many lay people that were a little worried about going down that road, you know, a little bit of voodoo woo. They weren't sure, you know, and it really created that credible foundation moving forward. Thermography has been around for hundreds of years. This is really fascinating because back in ancient Greek times and Roman times, if you were sick, they would lay you in wet clay and cover your body. And where it cracked and dried, they would treat that specific area. So it's all about temperature, all about heat, all about inflammation, which means it's all about the basal metabolic rate of your cells, or the physiology, how your cells are functioning. Let's face it, if they're revved up, trying to right themselves, then more heat is created. It's all about energy. I have to tell you a fascinating example of thermography in the early 1900s that I found out. I did a holistic hot talk in Tillsonburg, Ontario. The friend of the owner of the clinic brought in a 95-year-old British man, and he was fascinated by my talk. And he said, I have to tell you what happened to me. He said, I took a bullet in my shoulder, and what the doctors did pre-war, they put blue powder all over my body, put me in a glass capsule, and did something. And he said, everything melted away, but the blue powder stayed where I had neurological damage. So, in essence, it was another way of looking at temperature control whatever that blue powder, I've got to find out more about this. And they were able to isolate neurological damage, which makes sense because nerves, if they're not working right, your blood vessels aren't working right. They're not dilating effectively to heat normally, and they're not constricting effectively alternatively. So I was fascinated by that. And that was pre-development of the digital infrared camera, which happened in the 50s, military technology. And basically, Natalie, I'm night visioning bodies with a digital infrared camera. For those that can't wrap their mind around all these colored pictures and everything they see, the best example that I have found to date where people automatically get it, and it's all about accurate temperature to 0.08 degrees. It isn't just about fancy, pretty pictures. Whatever the images are going to show accurate temperatures. In contrast, will create different pictures and different colors based on how you set that scale up. But after the Boston Marathon bombings, my exact camera was in a helicopter, miles in the sky, after the terrorists got away. And you can just imagine in that camera, it saw temperatures to 0.08 degrees. In contrast, a slightly warmer temperature behind that background created the outline of a boat. And in the center of that boat, it showed a 98.6 degree human body temperature of the terrorist hiding in the boat under the tarp for miles in the sky. And I remember CNN, all the people at CNN were just thinking, this is the best thing. When did they develop it? The reality is, since the 50s, military technology. The other thing that's important to note, when people say it's bogus and not good science, all you have to do is ask NASA officials. It is used frequently in NASA. It is a great technology. And one of the examples given in court when one of my physician colleagues back in the 80s was fighting for the right to have insurance coverage in New York for thermography. The last official was a physician who worked in NASA. He said, we use this technology daily. And the judge said, well, give me an example. And he said, one of the things is spacesuit emissions. So when they get off the space shuttle and they walk in a room, they just don't disrobe, throw it in the corner. It goes in some laundry somewhere. They are thermally assessed. What's cold, what's excessively hot, what's normal, what's abnormal. And so that's really bringing some good credibility to the science. And we have a lot of studies on thermography, but once again, it's a natural medical modality, but was covered in the 70s and 80s by OHIP. So there was a time after 1982 when it was approved by the FDA that it had some respect, but we've gone backwards for a few decades, and now the shift is back on. Absolutely, I'm in agreement.
Okay, so to me, it kind of, what I'm hearing is that it's just kind of, we've seen the pictures, right? So we've kind of seen the pictures, but you know, someone who's not trained in it means nothing to us, right?
Exactly.
But it definitely tells you what's going on in different body parts. Someone who's trained who can look at it and they can see, basically it's going to tell a story, right? They're looking for certain patternings and they're looking for underlying traits. Is that kind of what?
No, they're measuring temperature only. The software is that specific, accurate. I could take a picture of your face right now and thermographically, and those physicians would click on, if they had to, 80,000 times, gathering information and in their expertise knowing what is heat from blood vessel, what is heat from just tissue, what is anatomically normal, like what is not normal. They've got to factor that all in, but the big key component here, particularly for the breast protocol and total body imaging, top to bottom, is the fact of your unique profile. I hate to shock you, Natalie, you probably already know there's no one like you, never has been, never will be. And so we care about that in natural medicine. Everyone has a different path, different family tendency, different environment they grew up in, you know, all of those things. But clearly, your unique profile is going to help in generating our physicians' reports because it's compared to what's the physiology saying. Is that normal for you based on your history or abnormal?
Excellent. So who should really get thermography?
Well, I'll tell you right now, in my world right now, because as you know, I'm very passionate about this, and that's for all that's going on in the world of breast screening completely disturbs me as an RN, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a woman in my 60s, because I see what's happening to early 20s. Being told mammogram, you're fine, you can have a mammogram, it's not going to bother you. So what really disturbs me is we have a collective problem, and that's globally, that the screening of healthy women with mammography is not working. It's causing more cancer than not. The studies are there. Canadian data is there with the big Toronto study of 25 years following 90,000 women. But for some reason, we're not eliciting that shift in breast screening, right? And so the problem is that one of the things is this screening inadvertently of women with mammography. So what we're looking at now is, I always like to say, with no particular issue or concern with these very young girls that are getting breast buds, and menstruating and having clear estrogen and hormonal changes before they're even 10. I've had young girls who've come in because there's a lump forms. It turns red. They're painful, and they're 11, 12 years old, coming in thermographically to see what physiologically is showing. And then if you go through your teens, a lot of girls are on the pill. And the pill, even the new pill, is 5 times more estrogen than you should have normally produced. And so we're seeing a lot of estrogenic effects there as well. So I get sometimes preteens, young teens. Classically, I would say, if a girl or a young woman was about 18, I believe that's an excellent time to have a baseline breast thermography, based on the fact that cancer doesn't grow overnight. And literally, breast cancer is the #1 killer of women 30 to 54. So if it's 8 to 10 years growth from one little cancer cell, doubling every 3 months till there's billions, and it's the size of my baby fingernail, and classically cannot be detected with mammography, you've got 8 to 10 years. I would say 18, getting on their game and really becoming proactive and preventative. Their life will have a different path, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So let's get into a little bit more on the preventative, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of people, I think, don't really know that, we go for these not just breast, but any preventative cancer screening that we have available to us conventionally. And by the time something gets to the point that it can be detected by a conventional measure, and let's not even talk about breast cancer. Let's say you have rheumatoid arthritis, and they're looking at your joints. There has to be like 80% destruction. So it has to be growing for 8 to 10 years for there to be enough that they can see and say, yes, there's something wrong at that point, right? And like you said, that's 8 years that potentially someone can be doing something
I know.
to counteract that, which is huge. So Pat, I have a list of my top 5 preventative things that I throw out there for everyone. Maybe give me your top 3 preventative things.
I would say, if you're looking just in the world of breast health, #1, because of the brilliant OBGYN docs, fertility experts, physicians that have been involved in my life, integrative medical doctors, I would say it's the emotional, energetic connection with the physiology of your cells. The thoughts and the emotions will manifest, and if it's a negative thought over and over and over, it's now scientifically proven that this is going to alter your cells, and it's truly going to make you go down that path. In fact, the emotional, energetic focus, stress management, clearing your head to boost your immunity, meditating, prayer, all the different things to get rid of the hit list of your crazy life. We're all on that treadmill. You want to get rid of those negative thoughts, forgiveness, gratitude right now, mindfulness. There's a lot of ways to put all that, but it is truly the key that unlocks the door for the physical world to help. So my one top doc who did a 2.5-hour lecture in breast cancer prevention literally called everyone back to sit down and clearly defined that if they don't get on that bioenergetic emotional game with how you control the cells of your body, that why even listen to one word he talked about for 2.5 hours in a cancer preventative talk. That was really very impactful and happened about 9 years ago. The other thing I say to most of my clients is the new word, the new buzzword, lifestyle medicine, the foundational component of health. Yes, it's the mindfulness, etc., but it's about what are you eating? Low on the food chain, anti-estrogenic, raw, organic, not a lot of red meat. A lot of clean eating and live food that's going to feed your body in a positive way and give you phytonutrients. The second part of that equation is good water, because people still drink bottled water. They drink RO water. They drink water out of a tap. There's a lot of contaminants, but even bottled mineral water is still acidic. Even RO water is acidic. And there's new technology, beautiful things that exist to give your water a pH of 9.2, very healing, and even gadgets now that you can alter the pH dependent upon what's the illness or what your body needs. So that's kind of a cool one. Then of course,
Optimized water, that's
I know, it's crazy. And then the other part of that equation obviously is exercise. Cancer hates oxygen, come on. And it loves sugar. There's a pretty good clue. You know, I mean, try to tweak around that, but it is not productive. If you really want to get on your game and you really want to stop a tumor from growing, don't feed it again. And create that environment, here we go again, epigenetics, that it's got all the things it hates, nothing it likes, and it can't reproduce. Bingo.
poor cancer.
I know. But I mean, I must add, people, I don't want to get everybody all hyped. They hear the word cancer, they think death sentence, okay? We all have it right now. I might have 10,000 cancer cells right now, maybe 50. But I'm on my game. I've got my army. That'll be snuffed out. You know, you got to get your power back and realize that you still have that power, right?
Yeah, this is that, like, your body has an immune system, right? So yeah, exactly, we're full of cancer cells right now.
Yeah.
But if we give our body what it needs, if our immune system's healthy, it's gonna
Bingo.
It's gonna turn them over. It's gonna do what it's got to do.
I love what you said before. What petri dish do you want to be? Right?
That's happy petri dish. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
So that was great. So, and we did not compare, lists beforehand, but I know the top 5 lifestyle recommendations. Preventative number 1 was exercise. So exercise. So if you do say have a diagnosis of breast cancer and you exercise, or someone who exercised regularly before that diagnosis, your risk of death is reduced 50%. Even if you get cancer, you get to the point you're diagnosed, and then you start exercising, you're still going to reduce your risk of death. That is huge. That is, again, that's like the number 1 is exercise. And the baseline recommendation is 150 minutes a week, so 30 minutes 5 times a day. And work with somebody, find a trainer, find someone, because I can't imagine being 55, never exercised, having breast cancer, and being told the number 1 thing you have to do is exercise. Like, where do you even start, right? Yeah. But you have to start somewhere. There's support groups out there. There's trainers out there who are trained to work with people in these situations. So number 1 has to be exercise. My number 2, along with your food, is cruciferous vegetables. And the reason the cruciferous vegetables are so important is they kind of help mop up some of that extra estrogen. We are just bombarded with estrogen-like products in our plastics we're exposed to if we've had birth control pills or estrogen supplements. So those cruciferous vegetables, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your kale, they just kind of suck some of that estrogen up. So that's critical for maintaining a proper estrogen balance. So my number 3 is kind of lymphatic support. What do you think about that, Pat? I know
let's do the lift and jiggle. Come on.
Say it
We
again
want,
so people can hear that.
I know. And the thing is, some of them are probably chuckling because they've been at one of my talks and we got up and did the lift and jiggle, because the lymphatic, particularly for breast health, is the sewage system, getting the toxins out. Viruses, bacteria, fungus, and other toxic chemicals and bad estrogen, getting it out of the fat cells and the tunnels of the breast. You got it. I'm big on lymphatics.
Yeah, and the lymphatics are huge for everything, right? So they're just our major detox way, and it just gets stagnant, right? So things like exercising will move your lymphatic system, right?
Yeah. Rebounding is a dream. Rebounding, the studies, and for those that have bad knees and women in their 50s and 60s that are, their bodies aren't as agile as they were before, and they're having trouble with knee replacements and hip replacements. Can't believe how many replacement things are happening out there in my age group, let me tell you. But rebounding is just such a phenomenal way, because that gentle jiggling, that's all your lymph needs. There's no pump, you're the pump. That's just pumping, pumping, pumping out all that sewage. And when you think on those terms, go braless as much as possible as well. Great advice, because you want to be the pump. But yoga and deep breath and exercise is going to pump your chest wall and pump your lymphatics. It's got so many benefits doing something, getting on your game. And you're right, it's hard when you haven't done anything, and then all of a sudden you panic and want to scramble to make a difference when you get a diagnosis. That's why we have to switch our thinking. Cellular level, preventative now. Don't wait till something bites you.
Yeah, and there's like, just with the lymphatic, just that word, between the two of us, we came up with 10 different ways you can affect the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
So pick one, right?
Yeah.
Pick what speaks to you, right?
Yeah.
So my number 4 is no sugar, right? If you have a cancer that is fed by sugar, just cut it off. Just starve it out, right?
Yeah.
If it can't have the sugar, it doesn't have the energy it needs to grow, which is, it always boggles my mind and infuriates me when I know people going through different types of cancer therapies, and the oncologist told me to eat pasta and ice cream to put on weight because they know I'm going to lose weight.
Yeah.
When I go through chemo, radiation, whatever it is. And I'm just like,
why? How? It's insanity. Yeah. So they're feeding chemo patients in these hospitals candy and sugars and brownies and cookies, and this will make you feel better and this will help you get through it. What an oxymoron. What an injustice. I believe it's illegal, unethical. It drives me absolutely crazy. Such misinformation. It absolutely drives me crazy. I cannot believe that exists. And you're right. And put your weight on. Go have DQ 4 times a day and eat whatever you want. How ludicrous, Right. It is brutal.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things we can do to put the body into a healing state. That so no sugar. And again, like, there's people out there who can help. Again, if you're used to eating one way, to be like, no sugar, like, how am I going to do that? There's people out there that Pat and I can connect you with, who can put you on that path and to help you.
One of the biggest examples for people that get it is those that have had a PET scan. So when they go and they're looking for cancerous tumors in the body, they give them a glass to drink. And in that glass is a radioactive cocktail with sugar. When they drink it, within minutes, every tumor will light up like a light bulb. It's just pulling that sugar into it, taking it, and so there's your example visually. Every bit of sugar you're eating, just think about it. You're lighting up light bulbs. You don't want to have any. You don't want to have any lights. You don't want to have any issue. It's all about the sugar. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And then my number 5 is healing past trauma. And so it's very much aligned with the very first thing you said, right? It's the emotional. And there's so much work that can be done in this area that conventional medicine, they just don't have the resources to do it, right? So my patients, the number one thing I do with them is I have it in the back corner, is I have a 5-minute journal. So all my patients get a 5-minute journal to help them focus on gratitude. So even for just a couple minutes a day, we have to slowly start shifting their mindset to look at the beautiful things in the world, not the negative, not the, and there's so much work, right? Like,
So much.
that you've had a lifetime of speaking this way and thinking this way. And it can take some work to unwind that and kind of rebuild new, better inner dialogue. But I say everyone needs a life coach, right?
Yeah.
We all need a life coach. We all need a mentor. We all need a therapist or a healer, whatever it is that person that's going to click for us.
Yeah.
Emotional, mental work has to be done.
That's such a good point, because we want the power in our clients and patients to understand they have the power. You pick your team, you shop for your professionals, whether they're a medical doctor or whether they're a practitioner, you get to shop. Most of them will give a 15-minute free consultation, either in person or on the phone. It's a different way of the world versus some of the GPs saying 5 minutes per client or 1 complaint per visit. And if you exceed 10 minutes, you have to book another appointment. This is ludicrous. So on the other side of things, it's great to be able to shop, have your team as you evolve through the stages of being preventative or treatment. And it gives you a great, powerful feeling because you know you've got the right people covering off that body, mind, spirit, that whole collective approach. And it's taking your power back. You're driving this ship, period.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been doing some work lately and training actually with a spiritual healer. And I can tell you with some of the training sessions I've had with him where we're actually working on clients, the stuff that you can go back and release in a matter of a 20-minute session is just earth-shattering for some people. And
I know.
there's so much baggage. I already mentioned Dr. Bruce Lipton earlier, and his book, The Biology of Belief, is one of the books I recommend to everyone. So he talks in that book, along with epigenetics, of how when we're young, we get imprinted with the people around us, with the way our parents talk, with the people we spend time with, and the emotions we pick up in those situations. And imagine when you're an 8-month-old baby in the room, and if your mother's having a really hard time and she's angry and she's yelling and you're taking all that, it's not your fault, but you are taking that and storing it. And no one thinks that 8-month-old babies, because they can't talk, but they are picking up on all of that, and that's being stored. And that's the type of work that these people, people who work in energy work and work deeper, with EFT and somatic experiencing, can get back and really release some of that stuff. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
So when you deal with my generation, we were told, do as I say, not as I do. Be quiet. It's not the time for you to speak. Do this, do that. You didn't have a voice. And, you'll never be anything. You have to be a nurse. You have to be a teacher or get married after high school. There weren't a lot of options. It's not, we're going to embrace and empower you to be a CEO of an incredible tech company down the road. These things didn't happen. And it takes a lot to reverse and kind of charge with that positive message. And what I love about right now, there's more respect being gained for integrative energy therapies and various modalities. And I love it because a lot of people struggle. They don't learn it. They can't learn to meditate. They don't know how to click this crazy world off out of their head and go over there and stand in a corner and meditate in a busy day. They're struggling with it. So we've got amazing professionals now that can lead the way and help remove the negative and replace with positive, and give you tools and baby steps. And the power of that is phenomenal, phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome. So besides just the breast imaging that we've talked about, are there any other services you offer, Pat?
Well, I think the breast imaging, but we do various combinations. What's really important is to note that what goes on in your breast is affected by what goes on in your mouth. So dental pathology, root canals, old fillings, cracked teeth, a little sensitivity, a little bit of a bad odor, or you're told you're harboring a little bit of bacteria, all of these things. There's a lot of gum disease out there, and they say periodontal disease is right up there now, about 90% of all the chronic illnesses. And there's a new thing in biological dentistry, which I found out about a few weeks ago. I was fascinated, where they swab your saliva, send it away for DNA testing, and identify the exact culprit, whether it be fungus, bacteria, virus, and all where else it would be in the body. So it's a huge time. But in our studies, we know one thing, that when they biopsied cancerous breasts, they took other sampling other than just cancer cells and wanted to see what else is in there. And it was heavy, statistically significantly heavy, with nickel and mercury and cadmium and other heavy metals that are in all our dental amalgams. So the hotter or higher risk breast was clearly correlating with the hot jaw. The inflammatory processes were showing. And it's like everything thermographically. We see things maybe years before it turns into something of issue or structure. So even dentistry, we have our challenges with mainstream dentists. All they have is x-ray, or they do their work and they say you don't have any symptoms. What we have is inflammation, and we can identify areas of inflammation that can be hot for at least 3 years before you're in screaming pain, massive infection, the nerves are damaged, and they're going to try to do a root canal on you. So it's a very controversial time, but the beauty is they're cropping up every day. Biological dentistry, holistic dentistry, phenomenal. New advancements. So I suggest try to respectfully partner with your mainstream dentist, but clearly there's another world out there. These biological dentists, interesting, will not clean your teeth if you have one mercury filling in there. You're just creating vapor and a mercury surge and toxicity. Crazy, eh?
Yeah, no, I love it. And like for, a lot of people watching on the webinar being from Southwestern Ontario, for us, the nearest biological dentist is 2 hours away. Right?
Yeah.
So, like no one in the area, and people are like, they're searching, they
Yeah.
know a better way.
Yeah.
But there's
the other thing too, though,
yeah.
I don't know whether you have this happening, but I tell you, I know where I do thermography in Amherstburg. There are now dental hygienists, independently practicing and incorporating holistic and natural medical modalities and strategies in their dental hygiene. So your first line of offense beautifully now, and they're cropping up in a lot of different cities, I'm finding, and they're the first ones that can teach you. They can't fix a tooth or take out a root canal. They can certainly look at the whole integrity of the mouth, but also give you strategies. There's a lot of wonderful things to kill that bacteria, fungus. A lot has to do with proper dental hygiene and oral health. And there's a lot that you can do with essential oils and water pick, or even water pick with warm salt water. There's a lot of things you can do to get the debris out and really clean your teeth while you're waiting to figure out what you're going to do with the other issue, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really amazing how many different body systems can go into the title of this talk was like breast cancer is preventable, right? But how many body systems we've talked about: the mouth, the brain, the lymphatic systems, your whole body and getting it moving, your digestive system. It's really quite remarkable, and I think that's why people are waking up to the lifestyle and the complementary and the functional medicine world. It's like, because we're not just looking at one thing.
Yeah.
Right? We're not just seeing the doctor who looks at this organ or the dentist who looks at this mouth. People are really looking for that overall picture, right? And finding your power team, right? So finding where's Pat? Like, how can I incorporate her into my team? Who's my energy worker I'm going to work with? Who's my dentist? you know, it's a team. So you got to have your team on and really be ready to go to bat, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you know you can rely on them, and they care about you, body, mind, spirit. They care about your history. And I just want to make one point that's a profound point about dentistry. In my era, every year there was an x-ray, a dental x-ray with the old-fashioned equipment that probably would fill this room. And we never covered our thyroids, and we never covered our breasts. Here's the other issue. Mammograms are being done by the hundreds of thousands since 1987 when breast screening started. Women did not cover their thyroids. I can tell you this, there's a lot going to be happening and coming to the surface at this moment in time. For the amount of thyroid issues we have now, that will be an epidemic of proportions with thyroid cancer, thyroid issues. But with respect to the history we take thermographically, it's important to know your exposure with radiation, because ionizing radiation or X-ray is cumulative. So when a breast mammogram is about 80 chest X-rays on your breast tissue without any additional pictures having been taken, that we know it takes the healthy woman about 18 months to heal the tissue and rid itself of those radiation effects. So for the women every year, every 6 months, every 18 months, and those that weren't healthy every 2 years, it is cumulative. And this is really unfortunate because it is definitely putting women in a situation where they never had a chance to recover. And it's obviously, do the math and think about it. I have women after 30 mammograms in a row, and the 31st year, a 4-centimeter tumor is found. And they've missed 20, 30 years of being preventative and proactive. That breaks my heart, and I believe that to be an injustice. And definitely something that I want women to know is, if you have to have a mammogram and you're informed, you get to make an informed decision. Then if you are and you're willing to do that and you're informed, please don't get them less than every 2.5 years between, so the body can heal. The other thing that's a huge thing of mine that a lot of people don't even know what it is at this moment in time, I've known about it for 25 years, that is glutathione, the molecule that removes heavy metals out of the cell, and the number one molecule your body produces to remove radiation and toxic waste out of the cell. And I'm just revisiting and getting back involved with bringing forth some more education with respect to that, because a lot of people, even shockingly, nurses in emergency that use and administer glutathione for someone who overdosed on Tylenol, they do that because there's a lot of glutathione in the liver and it will get and release those toxins. We didn't know that there was that nutritional side, and people think they can take glutathione and you can't. It's destroyed in your gut. So I'm just embarking on getting back to the breast cancer prevention model and the effects of glutathione. Very profound. And a lot of the women that have been radiated continuously, and they say, well, what can I do about it now? It's never too late. We can totally regenerate, right? In 7 years from now, this moment even, will be in a totally different person on a cellular level. So every little bit counts. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, no, I didn't know the actual fact of like the time, what the actual time was for recovery of the tissues.
Yeah.
Question: do they cover the thyroid now when they do mammograms?
No, you have to ask. They will hassle you most times. They will say it's bogus. It really is abusive in the world of breast screening, which hugely disturbs me and brings about the one other major fact that I am so passionate about. And since breast screening started in 1987, we have unfortunately 1.3 million women overdiagnosed and overtreated for something that wouldn't bother them in their lifetime. And that's called DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ. And so that's a precancerous change, and we all have that. It's such a toxic world, and hormones are always in flux, like it can really make a difference, but they are actually treating that in mainstream by mastectomy, chemo, and radiation. A lot of the women died. Many of my family, clients, colleagues, and friends over the years because of the treatment. And yet they didn't even have a cancer in the first place. So 80% of 80-year-old women have DCIS in an autopsy when they died of other causes. They never had a mammogram. They never had any breast issues. So we've got a real problem. And that's why the Promise video is profound, out of England. And what I've just told everybody in this little, what are we on, Facebook Live or whatever you want to call it, I don't know the techie term, but with this profound, wonderful thing that you've orchestrated here, Natalie, the reality is that this video is oncologists, radiologists, surgeons, physicians, naturopaths, politicians coming to the forefront and speaking the truth. So when I send an information package, which I can, a one-off, to anyone who wants thermography info, it's part of that package is a little 8-minute trailer on this video, which lasts 50 minutes. And I think it's about $3. You can have it and download it and watch it. And I have a call to action for all women to watch it and share with any woman they care about in their lives, or even those that you don't. It's really very powerful. And it's on all those things I've alluded to today, but from the top guys, from breast screening.
So Pat, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way if someone wants to get more information?
Yeah, I'd like them to email me to info@thermographylondon.com. If I'm assuming they all have email because we're on this computer right now, but if they would like to call, my number is 519-667-0666. And you'll notice when you're on my website that I always say, book a chat with Pat. I don't image people until I educate them and their questions are answered. I don't want them to have a false sense that we're looking for something we can't find or that we diagnose. Absolutely not. Your cells tell a story of heat, and we help you get educated to understand how to use the report effectively.
Yeah, that's great. So we're almost up at our time. So if there's anybody on the webinar that has any questions, you can just type a message in the chat box, and Pat or I will answer up to them. So Pat, I typed your email in the chat box, so anyone on the webinar right now has that.
Cool.
So yeah, so it's just info@thermographylondon.com.
Yeah,
is the best way to get in touch with Pat. And Pat goes all across the country, which is pretty cool. Like she's a pretty in-demand lady, so trying to book something where she's like everywhere, empowering women and being an advocate is amazing, which is one of the reasons why I want to sit down and bring Pat to you guys today.
I have to thank you, Natalie, because this is easy. This is very effective. This is a great chat that any woman would want to sit and hear us dialogue. We have to do this again. And you say it is going to be somewhere where people can access it to watch it again?
Yeah, it should be anyone who registered the record. I remember to press record.
Yes. Oh, shoot, I forgot to remind you. Oh, there you go.
I remembered. So hopefully it's working. So as long as it's recorded, then there'll be a recording that people can watch. And then Pat, you'll be able to send that out to any of your contacts as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow, let's do more. I think it's great, and people can be in their homes and we can reach far and wide. I think we've got to take it to another level. There's a lot of injustices that are occurring, and we want to get them to know the basic choices and foundational things, and this really brings it to light. So thank you, Natalie, for that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so no questions have come in. So you've got Pat's email address. I guess there's a couple people on here who don't have my contact. So mine is just Natalie@LifeWorksHealthSolutions.com. So if anyone who doesn't have that, just shoot me a quick email and I'll add you to my my 30 and 30 group. So some of the lifestyle stuff we were talking about. So I've developed a free program. It's a 30-day program where I send you an email every day where there's a short video. And it's all the lifestyle stuff we're talking about. Day one is
wonderful, very effective. I loved it.
Thank you. We talk about water, we talk about grounding, we talk about food, of course, supplements, sleep, all kinds of stuff. So it's really, it can be really empowering. And that's just, again, it's just something in your toolkit that you take what you need from it while you're building your team.
This is wonderful. Well, I'm excited. We're the deadly duo there, Natalie. This is great information, and I look forward to doing it again.
Just asked if the recording can be sent out. I believe when the recording is sent out, you should be able to just forward that email to any of your friends through email. I will see, the Facebook Live didn't work out, but I'll see once the recording is done if I can post that on Facebook as well. So then maybe more people can get access to it.
Cool.
So first time we'll work the tech out. Next time we'll get the Facebook Live working a little bit better. I am grateful for everyone who took an hour out of their Tuesday afternoon to come and listen to Pat and I talk a little bit. And I always learn something when I talk to Pat, always.
Well, and we plant a little seed or dangle a carrot for next time, because maybe we will do the lift and jiggle, and also maybe we'll talk about the book Dressed to Kill, about bras and the development of the bras. So when I always plant that, women are like, what's happening with the bras? Well, you need to know.
Okay, so the next one, that's the teaser. The next one will be the lift and jiggle, and we'll talk about the bras.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Pat. This has been fantastic. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. You can email Pat at info@thermographlondon.com, or you can email myself at Natalie@lifeworkshealthsolutions, all one word, .com. Thanks so much. Have a great day, guys.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.